Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. Going to talk about something today that can really change your life. It has made a huge difference in mine. I understand that some people have a slight aversion to this modality. I understand why, but once you get past the misconceptions that you have about it, it's a game changer to move your life forward. I'm talking about hypnotherapy, and we're going to dig deeper into that today and a different aspect of hypnotherapy. He is a certified hypnotist and she hypnotist. We're going to learn what that is. I'm learning about that just today with Joshua Strongin, who joins us here on the program. Welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I just want to say before we even begin about hypnotherapy, I'm sure you hear the misconceptions that people have that it can control your mind and make you do things that you don't want to do and all of that. It's not true, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's
Yeah,
absolutely correct.
yeah, I think it's what we conditioned watching TV, the stage hypnotist that makes people, bark like a dog, cluck like a chicken, and all of that. We're not going to do something we don't really want to do. So if you don't want to bark like a dog, nobody can make you do it. Nobody's giving up credit card numbers or sensitive information unless you want to, but that's up to you. The hypnotist is not going to do it. It 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 took some time for me to study it and try it. And then I realized that people like you are like the keys to our mind and help us open it up and understand what's going on and what has happened like in our life in terms of trauma. What do you normally hear from people that have that aversion to hypnotherapy?
So they're pretty much exactly what you said. Those are their fears and such, and I pretty much dispel them as fast as possible by saying that all hypnosis really is me helping you unlock your subconscious to be able to understand and then resolve certain issues that you came to me for in the first place.
And how about some of those issues for people that aren't really sure?
I mean, I've helped people with a plethora of things like stress, anxiety, depression, trauma. There's pain management, weight management. Uh, my specialty, which is libido enhancement, along with trauma, as I mentioned earlier. And there's so much more as well.
In my understanding and learning of all of this, many, many, like 90% in my mind here of the things that we talk about all go back to our childhood and things that we experience. And I don't mean like just horrible things. I'm just talking life in general, how it shaped you as a child. Would you say that that's pretty much true in what you know?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much true for a lot of the time, as well as the fact that a lot of the time we think um, reason X may be the reason why we're behaving in a certain way or have a certain reaction today, but our subconscious holds a lot of that information. And because we're not able to access our subconscious on demand a lot of the time,
Right.
the issue would be, well, this really isn't the reason. So when you go see a hypnotherapist like me, I'll help you discern whether that is the actual reason or not.
So I've never fully understood this, and it's fundamental, but I hear that 90 something percent of what we do is our subconscious. And the remainder, so call it, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10% is our conscious minds during daily days, activities, everything. Is that what you understand? And I try to get my arms around it. Like us talking right now, if that's true, like it's 90 something percent of what we're doing is our subconscious and very little is our conscious. It's hard to almost believe that.
Yeah, no, that is true. The way that I frame it out for people is we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. Now, things have to go through our subconscious first before they go through our conscious mind. Our subconscious filters things out. So, because of this, certain things are held by the subconscious that aren't necessarily let go to the conscious mind to be aware of all the time and such. And some of these things are little things where maybe you can't remember a celebrity's name or something like that when you're trying to recall a movie, like that movie with that guy and with the thing that happened and whatnot.
Sure.
Um, or something more severe, like when trauma happens to someone and dissociation occurs. The subconscious will hold on to that and not let it go to the conscious mind because the conscious mind can't handle it.
Hmm. Thank you for that, because now I have a clearer picture and a different view. It's almost as if the subconscious is a filter to protect you, loosely said, before it allows anything to get into your the conscious portion of your mind. Am I getting that right?
You're getting that right overall. Yeah, I would say that that's true. The only small caveat would be that the subconscious doesn't necessarily have a concept of good or bad.
Right.
So because of that, it does the best job it can to filter things. However, when trauma occurs, for example, there will be certain things that get through, and this is one of the reasons why flashbacks and things occur.
Yep. And thank you for that, because I've understood that too. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between good and bad. So when we say certain things, even to ourselves in our mind, it doesn't know how to process it. So when you use negative words, it's going to say, oh, that's what you want, even though it's something negative. Let me do that for you. Let me get that done for you because I care about you. um, it's pretty amazing. And I try to live in the moment. So I apply it to right now. So here we are talking. What's going on with our subconscious in this conversation? And then how much of it is the conscious? I try to process that.
So I would say that during this conversation, most of this is our subconscious. We you do your radio side and you just do it easily or effortlessly because you know how to do it and you've been doing it for so long. So you have a neural pathway that you've created to be able to do that so seamlessly. Me, I've been talking about this stuff for years now, so it comes easily or effortless to me. So I just know more or less what to say, how to present it, and explain it to everyone.
Interesting. And I don't even try. Like I'm curious. I'm asking questions. It's not people say to me, Steve, do you prepare before you do a podcast? I'm like, never. I don't. I just like to learn. You've been doing this for a long time, Josh. Give us your backstory and how you got to this point where you're helping people with hypnotherapy.
So I am so I do entertainment as well. And
Now, what do you
I
mean by entertainment? Is that the stage shows, that kind of thing?
it's that kind of thing. I started off doing magic and I still do magic
Okay,
and perform that. And
gotcha.
then I saw a hypnosis show and I was really fascinated by it. I talked to the hypnotist after and he told me to go talk to someone else within the magic mentalism community about hypnosis, and I did. Um, I went and I talked with him and met him a few months later.
Hmm.
We hung out for the day and he was invaluable and I credit everything to him. His name is Spidey, phenomenal. And I started learning how to do comedy hypnosis at first. And I did this for about a year to 6 months exclusively. At that point, I discovered that hypnosis can be utilized for actual helpful things in real world, quote unquote, aspect. And I started helping people with stress, anxiety, depression, libido enhancement trauma, and so on and so forth. At that point, a year has gone by, and I say to myself, it's time to get certified if I'm going to do this and take it seriously. So I did. There's one of the largest, if not the largest, hypnosis conference in the US. It's in Vegas, and I went. It was phenomenal and amazing. I learned so much, and I have taken that experience with me and all the knowledge that I gained and applied it to my life every day since.
Wow. So I want to look at this, and we're going to get to the trauma resolution, libido enhancement aspect of hypnotherapy that you practice, or part of it, in just a moment. But I want to flip this in a different direction. You being somebody who also does hypnotherapy through a comedy lens and a show lens. How does that work? Because that's the part I don't understand. Like I watch those shows and I'm like, it's set up. That person's getting paid to bark like a dog or whatever it might be. I'm skeptical. Um, how do you make people do that if they don't want to? We said before, you're not going to do something you don't really want to do. So how do you get that done?
So when we're children, our subconscious is very, very, very active. And as time goes on, we get this, for lack of a better term, lens over our perspective and point of view and see things as they are in the real world, quote unquote. So, because of this, our subconscious gets a bit suppressed initially and then repressed. Now it's still there. It just hasn't come out to play so much. So when people go to a stage show, the hypnotist, I have to make this clear, only has so long to get the best, quote unquote, again, people up on stage to participate in the show. So they only have a very small limited time, I would say 10, 15 minutes at the most. So they use a very specific modality typically to affect as many people as possible. I'm a little different in that respect, but most hypnotists will use one modality. And this will, for lack of a better word, coax the subconscious to be like, oh, hey, what's going on? I haven't been active in a while. I get to play now. And so
Hmm.
the subconscious takes over. And at that point, it wants to play and have fun because that's where the imagination lies in the subconscious. And so then you can pretty much easily or effortlessly have a really great show as long as you go through the process of hypnosis effectively.
Interesting. It's almost as if we all are kids. We all want to be a kid again. And this allows that when you do those shows.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a very great way to put it.
Hmm. And I've often heard that since a lot of this goes back to our childhood, a lot of the issues that we have, like when somebody says to somebody else, yeah, you're acting like a child, you really are, essentially, because your mind, subconscious, is running on programs from your childhood. It's still using the same stuff from back then, but now you're an adult. That, would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's very accurate.
So the SHE portion, which is an acronym of what you do, helps people in a number of different ways. What does that stand for?
Essential healing and enhancement.
And what are some of the things that you help people with using that?
So my primary purposes for that, I've niched down from doing everything, which I still do. I can still help people with anything and everything that they come to me for the most part. But my specialties are trauma and libido enhancement, where I will help people with trauma resolution and enhancing their libido for, uh, you know, their, let's just say, bedroom time.
Gotcha. Sure. And they're very much connected. I would say the trauma and libido challenges that somebody might have.
Yeah, definitely. They are very much connected, especially when you get into the aspect of, again, the subconscious and resolving things and subconscious blocks that can happen in general, as well as subconscious blocks that can happen to impede the libido.
Sure. Sure. And even, things I've understood now that I studied a little deeper into hypnotherapy, even men who have challenges and may think it's a physical situation, from my understanding, it's a lot of times not. It's more of what's going on up here based on what happened in the past.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
very true. There's a lot of aspects and subconscious wiring that
Sure.
happens and such during our, as we grow up, right?
Sure.
And so this can be rewired through uh, the modality of hypnotherapy.
Yeah. Even those things like, and when I say, and I'm just focusing on the man for the moment, you help men and women, but even those things that we say, things in the past, I'm not just talking about intimate moments that maybe didn't go as well as expected in the past. I'm even referring to things that happen when you were a kid where many of us feel that we're not good enough. And that comes into play. And that's, the thread that goes through your subconscious that holds you back from a lot of different things, including intimacy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that one of the best ways to combat it is hypnotherapy because it doesn't necessarily focus on the approach of understanding completely, much like traditional talk therapy does. It
Right.
focuses on resolution, which is in the end what everyone wants.
Right. So can you tell us briefly how that works as opposed to regular hypnotherapy?
How what aspect works as opposed
She.
to. So, sheet hypnosis um, works pretty much honestly exactly the same. The only differences I would say between quote unquote regular hypnotherapy would simply be the fact that what a lot of hypnotherapists I found do to put people into hypnosis during hypnotherapy sessions are something called a progressive relaxation method,
Hmm.
where they'll have the person sit in a chair, lay down, and they'll have them close their eyes and count down from 10, 9, and so on and so forth, all the way down to whatever. The issue with the progressive relaxation method is that it will only typically work for around 50% of people. So, while I do use the progressive relaxation method in certain cases, I am aware of this fact. So, I also am aware that people take in information on different levels, visually, auditorily, or kinesthetically. And depending on how you take in that information is going to determine what modality and method I use to be able to get you into hypnosis to help you work on your problem in the most effective manner.
When it comes to women and libido challenges, is it similar to men in that it's a lot of what's in their subconscious and what they may have experienced in the past?
Especially women.
Really?
Um, yes. Um, I would say that it is much more obvious with women when you really think about it, just because of the stigma we put on women and just as a society as a whole. Um, as well as the fact that they feel a lot of shame a lot of the time, and this impedes their libido. With men, it's so from a societal standard, it is kind of harder to see that initially, but they have that as well, but in a different way because they put that on themselves,
Hmm.
whereas society puts it on women.
It's interesting. Just the other day, I did a podcast with two women. One of them wrote a book about female empowerment, and just what you're talking about came up in the conversation where there is somewhat shame attached to women and them wanting pleasure.
Hmm.
And it's like a stigma that that's a bad thing, and gets buried. And so I totally excuse me, based on that conversation, based on what you're talking about, I definitely see that connection there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a thing in our society, and it's something that I speak on quite a bit as well. And it's
Hmm.
something that must be discussed. We have to have these hard discussions to prevent these things from happening to, because we're talking about women in particular. And I have no problem talking about that, and potentially that would mean potentially I have less clients, but that would also mean that I'd be able to just help people before a problem even starts.
Interesting. So when you say before a problem even starts, and we're talking about intimacy at this moment, But do you mean that before you have a problem, let's say if you were in some challenging relationships previously, that it would be maybe in your best interest to do hypnotherapy before things crop up?
Yeah, I would say so because it can help you set up certain it can help you discover certain things about yourself to
Sure.
be able to allow yourself to adapt better to certain situations and understand things about yourself that maybe you didn't know before or weren't consciously aware of.
Well, what you just said, I think applies to all hypnotherapy, not just one particular
Mhm.
type, because you find things like I call it connecting the dots. When I did hypnotherapy, before we met, I saw things from my childhood and how they connect now. And not that my childhood was horrible or anything, but we all got stuff. I bet it could be something as simple as you walk past the kitchen, you heard mom or dad say something, wasn't even for you, you internalized it, then you keep it with you. Or a teacher said something about a project you did, and then you could have that feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Whether you're aware of it or not, that's going to hold you back. But in the session that I had, I saw myself as a kid, like in my mind, like I was watching TV. And I'm sure you've done that, or you've had clients that have done that, where they see themselves as kids, and they confront themselves, and kind of heal. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I do a very specific technique that I personally call the mirror method,
Hmm.
where I do pretty much exactly what you just described, and it's one of the most powerful techniques that I do. And every single time, every time I do it, people cry afterwards because
I
it
would,
is
yeah,
such an emotional, big impact thing to get that part of you back.
yeah, yeah. Yes, I did. Um, but it was a positive feel after it. And I just want to say here, hypnotherapy in general, and again, going back to the myths that are out there, if somebody's doing a session and they don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, you could just say, I don't want to do it anymore. And that's it. You're done. You could stop that session. It's not like you take somebody and you've got them in a trance and now you've got them where you want them and all of that. So not true. You could just you I don't know why you would, but maybe if it got a little heavy for some of us, we just, stop for the moment. Need to take a pause, right?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes there are these things that come up called abreactions, and abreactions are negative, or at the very least, seemingly negative things that occur during a session within a client's mind. And when this happens, I do one of two things. I will continue going because I know how to resolve these things and work with them, as opposed to just not knowing what to do, of course. Or I will just take them out of that. And the simple reason I won't initially take them out of that again and initially is because I know how to handle that situation so that it doesn't impact them in a negative way.
Gotcha.
What must be understood is that the subconscious, however, has no sense of linear time. So because of that, a second can seem like a year, or a year can seem like a second. So because of that, I can manipulate that to make it seem like less than a second anyway, and then
Mm.
resolve it and make that resolution feel like it has lasted a year already,
Wow.
which is greatly beneficial to them.
We're out of time. I could just keep going. I'm learning so much from you. And interestingly, the things that many of us have the misconceptions about watching TV and seeing the stage hypnotist, you do that. So it's interesting, truly looking at it from the other side, coming from there, and then as you help people laugh, but you also help people heal in a major way. Josh, how do we find you? Somebody, if this resonates and they want to learn more, even ask some questions, how do they do that?
Yeah, you could go to my website, shehypnosis.weebly.com. You could give me a call, phone number 845-802-2724. You could email me, shehypnosis hypnosis@gmail.com.
And you can help anybody anywhere virtually, right?
Yep.
Cool. She, by the way, is spelled just like it sounds, SHE, hypnosis.weebly.com. Josh, thanks for being here today. Learned a lot. And I've been studying this, experiencing it, but you took it many layers deeper, and I appreciate that. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.